This is part 4 of our panel discussion on MOONoTheism, which is a series looking at the pagan influences on Islam. And of course, I have JC with me, Usama, Dakdok. Emmanuel just dropped off the stream. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment. So hello and welcome, guys. And how are you doing?
So far, so good. But you said something catch my attention. Moonism. What is moonism, man? It's like something to do with
MOONoTheism, not monotheism. MOONoTheism, as in the moon.
the moon. You're talking about the moon. Okay, all right, sounds good, man. I like monotheism. That's
Well, I mean,
who did you invent that title, bro?
Actually, no, I kind of did, but then I discovered someone else had come up with it before me. There was a guy, I think an Israeli guy, who'd written a book on the topic. Oddly enough, I'm not the only guy. There was Robert Morey in 1980s who came up with the same idea, and then someone else had come up with the name before I did. So what can I say?
MOOnoTheism.
MOONoTheism. Yeah, there was a guy that wrote the book. I actually emailed him and asked him to come on and talk about it, but I never heard back. But the premise was really simple. Christianity has the cross, which clearly has a historical and theological significance. Right? So why does Islam have a moon and a star? Clearly it must have some kind of historical and theological significance. I mean, if they were the banana religion, they'd have a banana. Right? If they were the lollipop religion, they'd have a lollipop as their symbol. So I'm assuming, okay, they've got a moon and a star. They're either communist or they are into the moon and the stars. I think it's a very simple premise.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And we're so far marching on to prove that in the previous 3 sessions. So I think your theory have enough foundation to build on.
Yep. You were nodding your head there, Emmanuel?
I just want to say I disagree with what this guy is saying here. Logan's warning. I very much disagree. I think the right approach would be just to expose the kind of things we're exposing, right? That's all. I think that's all you have to do, really.
I mean, look,
you don't have to fight or anything like. You don't have to be. You don't even have to fight on a political level.
I think
at least that's my
sense. Because the social pressure ultimately converts into political pressure, right? Social sentiment ultimately becomes political sentiment, and someone is going to express that within the political realm. However, these Muslims have infiltrated politics, law enforcement, the judiciary, education, and we also need to then motivate at a grassroots level to expose them there and cut off the funding, expose the networks, all of these things.
Yeah. And here's a fact, Brother Lloyd, it's not just infiltration. It is infiltration for the hope and for the purpose of invasion. I mean, you can always infiltrate others for good of you and them, but that's not the whole purpose. They're here to take over. They're here to invade. That's exactly what they are doing. So,
they don't integrate; they dominate.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you see that the picture of the prayer rugs scattered all over the 9/11 memorial in New York, covering the memorial? Never forget, right?
Yeah, we talked about actually on our Saturday broadcast, and we talked about it on live TV broadcast in Channel 30 in Milwaukee last week, and we talked about it on Crosstalk nationwide. So I covered in 3 areas, and it is sickening. And they were planning to pray over the names of our dead men and women who were victim of the prayer of the Muslims. I mean, this is sick. If it was not for the Muslim prayer, these people will be alive today, or many of them will be alive. It's only those who will die of old age, of course. But it is sick. Islam teach to kill. The prayer encourage them to kill, and then they want to pray over their names. This is sick.
Yeah.
Shame on everybody who allows this to take place. Shame.
Public sentiment is changing. You see it on social media, even in politics. The UK being the canary in the coal mine. They're saying, oh, the Muslims are scared. Even Sadiq Khan is now, oh no, Muslims are scared because there's so much Islamophobia. In other words, there's deserved backlash against them. And people are starting to voice their displeasure. And the government clearly is on the side of the foreigners the invaders, as you say, not on that of the local natives.
So help me out, Lloyd. What is phobia?
An irrational fear, whereas I think Islamophobia, basically Muslims blowing people up, Muslims blowing up buses, trains, murdering people, stabbing them. This is causing Islamophobia. Less of that, and then less Islamophobia.
Yeah. And so phobia is fear of nothing, and Muslim afraid to death of the fear of nothing. Makes sense. Yeah. I'm getting it, man. I'm getting it. Someday I'll figure it out.
Come on, you all know, if you heard of Buddhists, no one's afraid of Buddhists. I mean, Buddhists are chill. Everyone knows Buddhists are chill people.
Buddha phobia. The last time I looked at my dictionary, can you find me online if there is a Buddha phobia?
I don't think you're going to find it. It doesn't exist. But basically, they're trying to destroy your sense of self-preservation, your rational fear of the encroachment of Islam, which is trying to rob you of. You know what? There's a fantastic tweet that I saw yesterday that said, liberals shouldn't worry. Trump is not going to enslave people. He's not going to be killing gays. He's not going to be taking rights away from women because Mr. Trump is not a Muslim.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. But the Democrat will empower the Muslim to take over their party, to take over America, and somehow we'll have Islamophobia.
Well, look, it's changing. I mean, look at what what's it, Nick Shelby, what has done? This exposure of the Somali fraud. Now he's been in Boston.
Yeah, that guy,
California.
Young man.
Nick Shirley. And I mean, basically, you're just seeing these people now as grifters, as thieves, as fraudsters, as conmen, and public sentiment is shifting. People are starting to demand justice, and they want repatriation. They want these people gone. And in fact, 73%, 83% of the U.S. population, liberal and Republican, conservative, want these people deported.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I kind of envy you guys because you can get away with saying things like that. Me as a German, I can't say it.
They'll send a SWAT team to your door. I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
But are you following Nick in California with the Somali in California as well?
With the daycare fraud?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it seems to me it's everywhere where are Muslim Somali. There are pirates in the sea, on the ocean, and there are pirates in America to drain our economy in the billions. In the billions. Man, this is sick.
Yeah, but you know what? At some point, look, for instance, in the UK now, it is public policy by Rupert Lowe and Restore that these people will be stripped of their citizenship. Now, the Trump administration, sure, dragging its feet perhaps, but it has started to strip citizenship. And I think this snowball is going to grow bigger as it rolls downhill. And the idea is now in the public consciousness. So I think we will start to see people demand accountability. People are tired. And if they don't get it from the government, they're going to start doing it themselves. And they've been forced to. The media's been negligent. So citizen journalists are not going out and exposing these people as the frauds that they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
yes,
if they will not be...
For me, yes, like in the Bible, it says, my people have been destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So what we're seeing now is that when something bad happens in the Muslim community, people before they were told, oh, well, these are the weird ones. They are not real Muslims. But people are now becoming more educated. And then they're seeing that in Sharia. They're finding that in the Quran, in the Hadiths, in the history. And they're saying, no, I'm not buying it anymore. So as people learn these things more and more, they're pushing back. It's like, no, this is not just one guy acting out of his own volition. This is a guy who has been trained to do that from birth. So people are waking up.
True. When last have you seen the excuse, that's not real Islam, that wasn't a real Muslim? I mean, that excuse has pretty much fallen by the wayside now because everybody knows the references.
Yeah. And here's the fact, guys. When they talk about Islamophobia, when they talk about this have nothing to do with Islam, they are depending on one thing and one thing only, the ignorance of the people of the West.
You just froze, Usama.
the Sunnah of Islam, the way of how every Muslim ought to live. And I always say, we don't judge the religion on what people say or do. That would be stupid. Because I can assure you, I can destroy Christianity by looking about some of the so-called Christian ministers of Christian organization, what they say and do. It will make Christianity look terrible bad. We judge the religion on the words of the book, the words of their God, the command, the teaching of their prophet or their Messiah or whatever. So you go to the source of the problem. It is not people, it is Allah. It is Muhammad. It is the Quran. And if you know that, that will be the end of Islam.
Talk about that, guys. I have a bit of a cold, so forgive me if I struggle to speak a little bit. Also, I was looking for a camel because I was trying to cure my illness. I could not find any camels nearby here in Poland. And then also I looked for a fly. I was thinking maybe I can dip a fly or something, and, you know, for the cure.
You need to be serious for a minute. Excuse me. You need to be serious for a minute. We offered you camel urine in the past, and you turned us down.
I wasn't sick then.
Oh, it's just because you needed it now? You changed your mind about it?
It's like I could find, you know, so yeah, anyway. So what a pity. What a pity. You know, Allah has not seen fit to provide me with the necessary medication to heal myself.
Then taste the torment of your infidelity, as Allah stated all over the Quran. You must.
I have some. I have some. You can have some.
Thank you. Yep. So, guys, welcome back. We're discussing MOONoTheism, Islam, and the moon god of Babylon. And I want to go back to the last slide that I did last time. And then, so this is from the Smithsonian Institute, right? The Nabateans, and this is Petra. I visited Petra. I spent 2 days there in the Jordan. Worship powerful female deities. They built lavish shrines, right? And the Nabateans worshipped 3 female deities: Alat, the goddess; Al-Uzza, the powerful one; and Manat, the goddess of fate. As we know, Alat is the feminine of Allah, because this comes from the Babylonian, and prior to the Babylonians was a different, I mentioned it in the previous set of slides though, last week, that had the idea of the female consort of the male deity. So of course, so in Islam, obviously they kind of talking about Allah does not have a wife, right? Because so that idea is influenced by that. But Allah is the female Allah. Dr. Glenn Corbett from the American Center for Oriental Research in Jordan said the Nabateans lived in Petra, worshipped in particular the goddess Al-Uzza, termed the mightiest.
So
and we know, of course.
Are you trying to tell me that Muhammad knew anything about Allah and Uzza and Manat? I mean, why are you talking about it?
Because we will find out, and we have discussed before, that Muhammad and his wife worshipped these pagan goddesses. This was part and parcel of what his family worshipped. So let's go to Arthur Jeffrey again, a very famous scholar from the earlier part of the 20th century in the pagan Muhammad. The Quran mentions 2 prophets. It claims of prophets from infancy. John took the book with strength, and we gave him the prophetic office as a child. I think we discussed this. This is Jesus from the Gospel of Infancy, right? And of course, so Jesus is, that's very interesting. Jesus was not 40 years old. Jesus had not come into the prophethood. And how come Muhammad wasn't the prophet from the childhood? You know, Jesus in every way is more moral, more powerful than Muhammad. And yet Muhammad is supposed to be the special man in Islam. It's crazy when Jesus is mentioned more than him in the Quran. It's all of it is really, really crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, I want to say, leave Alat and Al-Uzza. These were their idols, which they used to worship and then go to bed. And that's in Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who speaks of this, that Muhammad and his wife Khadija worshipped these goddesses, Alat and Al-Uzza.
You know, it's a very serious question. What Muhammad used to do, what Muhammad used to believe, what Muhammad used to worship before the age of 40. I mean, you're talking about entire 40 years. That is 2/3 of his life. And when he used to go and meditate, according to the legend of Islam, the story of which they taught us, what he was meditating on. Was he a Jew? No. Was he a Christian? No. anybody in his family is a Jew or a Christian. No, neither his father nor his grandfather. So we have a problem. We struggle with this at least say 30 years from the age of 10, the age of understanding something about worship, as we see that is actually the age which is Sharia imply for beating the children if they don't pray, if they don't fast, if they don't do this and that of Islam. So it's no longer a voluntary age, but it's a forcible age. So what did Muhammad used to be between 10 and 40?
And I have a question. Muhammad is supposed to be sinless according to Muslims, but Allah has to forgive him multiple times of his sins. But also Allah only made him a prophet at the age of 40. So prior to that, he was not specially blessed. He did not lead a sinless life. And it says here, according to the Islamic sources, he was sacrificing goats, female goats, to Al-Uzza when he was following the religion of his family.
Yeah. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I disagree with you, Brother Lloyd. I think Muhammad was more of a decent person. Not perfect, not good, but a decent person up to the age of 40. When he became a prophet, that's when he lost it. I mean, he was not an adulterer until he passed the test of prophethood and became a prophet. He was not a thief until later. He was not a killer until later. He was not literally, think about all the sins which Muhammad lived in after 40 is much greater than those which he lived before 40. So he was faithful. I mean, listen to the testimony of his own wife, Khadija. She called him the faithful because he did not cheat or lie or anything, but I think all that changed after he became a prophet. So I thought when you draw closer to God and you now have the official office of prophethood, you be more careful how you live. But in the case of Muhammad, it is Allah gave him the okay. Okay, Muhammad. It is another okay,
He's more
Muhammad.
like a cult leader that had a megalomaniac complex. I mean, it sounds very cultish, doesn't it, Emmanuel?
Yes, it does. We had a prophetess, so whatever you call a female prophet, and it's pretty much the same story. How power corrupts, and similarly, her claims and also the claims about her became ever more
grandiose, exaggerated.
Yeah. It started out being very humble, right? At the beginning, she didn't even dare call herself a prophetess, and also at the beginning, she didn't claim to speak for God or Jesus or anything like that. But she did eventually make all these claims. Eventually, she just outright claimed to be the ultimate goddess herself. Actually, eventually she claimed to be Sophia, which in Gnosticism is this kind of female goddess of wisdom. And she's right beneath basically the ultimate source god. So there's the ultimate source god, and right after the ultimate source god comes her. She's the ultimate source god in Gnosticism is not tangible. So she ultimately claimed to be the ultimate tangible personification
manifestation of God. Yeah.
But that was a process, and you can see now we are actually talking about Gnosticism, and she's claiming to be a Gnostic god. Originally, she didn't claim to be any god, and originally she just claimed to be, a
messenger.
It started off as a normal form of Christianity, which it wasn't. And originally she just claimed to speak for Brother Emmanuel, which is why I have the name I have. Which in their cult, Emmanuel is just a spiritual being, right? Yeah. But then eventually Emmanuel, as you know, Emmanuel is also the name of Jesus in the Old Testament. So eventually it wasn't just, originally it was just any, some spiritual being named Emmanuel. But eventually that became Jesus. Eventually she was just like, oh yeah, well, actually, it's Jesus now. Right. And then her claims ever became ever more grandiose, right? Then she was speaking for Jesus, and then it was like, oh no, now I'm not just speaking for Jesus. Now I actually am Jesus.
No,
Right?
get the-
And ultimately it became no. Actually, you know what? I'm even higher than Jesus, right?
And this pattern is similar to what we see with Muhammad, of course. Now we have three deities here: Manaf, Manat, and Baal. Manaf is the pre-Islamic god worshipped supposedly among the Quraysh and other tribes of northwest Arabia. We know little about the deity, right? But his idols were kept in the Kaaba. Okay, that's Manaf. Manat, important female deity, right? Associated with Allat. Interesting what we have here, Allat, the Lat, right? This is the definite article, Allat. She is definitely the Lat. Then, of course, we have the La. So who is La? I mean, that's an interesting question. The La, because Allah as a proper name is a later idea. So the Allah previously with this Allah was Baal, or as they called him, Shin, or Makkah, the god. So that was the proper noun. So Muhammad took the definite article and made it the name of the deity. So that's a change. These were the daughters of the La. Evidence from the ancient year shows this goddess was very ancient. Her name appears in Akkadian, and one of the names associated with Ishtar. In Palmyra, she's seated holding a scepter, the goddess of fate. In Arabia, her worship location was close to Yathrib, that's Medina, but Yathrib also is the name of a town just above Baghdad. So that's a name that was transplanted, which became eventually Medina. And she was worshipped by two Arab tribes of the city, linked to the Lat and Uzza. And of course, these three female deities are the daughters of Baal. So just something to bear in mind. Any thoughts, Usama? You want to say something?
Yeah. Was it Abdullah or Abdullah? Muhammad daddy's name was Abdullah, the servant of Allah, or the servant of Lat? Because if he was the servant of Allah and he knows about Allah, why he never believed in Allah? Why he is burning in hell forever and ever according
So
to
then who was Allah back then?
Well, you're calling it MOONoTheism, but actually, you know, I mean, the implication is that actually it's not monotheism. We're not dealing with monotheism here. We're dealing with pagan polytheism. So there is of course you have Allah, and then you have female goddesses as well. You have more than one.
Yeah, it's a pantheon. There's a difference. Don't forget, Muhammad is supposed to have had a child. Let me just go back up. Muhammad is supposed to have a child with his first boy was called Manaf, Abd Manaf. So Muhammad had a son, his first son, he named Abd Manaf. So, which is very interesting because Manaf is this pre-Islamic god. And of course, none of his children survived except for one daughter eventually. But interesting that he's naming children after pagan deities.
So not only his father is a pagan god, but his own child is also a pagan god.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that the reason his first child didn't survive is not that they sacrificed it to Baal or something.
That is a question, that is a question that one has to ask.
Because usually it would be the firstborn. Usually you would sacrifice the firstborn to Baal because that would basically give you the biggest street creds with Baal. So
remember, I mentioned a passage last week where Muhammad says about this woman who loves her child so much, she would not sacrifice her child to the fire. Now, sacrificing a child to the fire is what was being done by very many pagan sects, sacrificing their child to Baal. So why would he make an indirect reference like that to sacrificing your child to Baal, where she would not do it, meaning she's an exception? That's a really odd reference, just that these things are all over these records. I mean, even if they're artificial, even if this was faked, even if it's completely fictional, why did they add so much of this stuff?
Yeah, and it's also interesting because, there, of course, there's a lot of justified criticism of Islam and of Muhammad, and Muslims are struggling to defend Muhammad and come up with something good he did, and they're having a hard time with it, especially if you go by the Sunnah, because there's just a lot of bad stuff he did in there, but there's one good thing that he did do, and that fits in with that, and that is he abolished child sacrifice. So maybe
Well, hold on.
he didn't.
Hang
He didn't.
on.
Hey, come on! I saw that one good thing.
Listen, you're not telling the truth. Hey,
because
this is the story.
They make kitty-sized explosive belts and jackets, right? Just so you know.
Yeah. You're following the exaggeration of the Muslim in the West that Muhammad ended qatl al-atfal, the killing of the little baby girls. If that is the case, I have no idea how in the world that Muslim men were having mamas and sisters, and Arab. I'm not Muslim. I talk about Arabs. How did Muhammad have Khadija, and how did Muhammad have all the other females in his days? If that's the case, there should not be any female in the Saudi Arabia Peninsula. Oh, and don't forget, neither the Jews or the Christian practice wa'd al-banat, the killing of the little infant females. That's not practice in the ways the Muslim try to present it. And as a matter of fact, I wrote about that in an article. I said, if I am one of those female who survived, I wish under Islam that they have wa'ded me. I wish they have killed me as a little girl, because it would be better for the female to be put to death as infant than to grow up in Islam.
Right. But as we know, as the saying goes about Muslim kids, they blow up so fast.
Yeah.
You've been very quiet, JC. Any thoughts you want to add?
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, the more you guys speak, the more difficult the whole narrative appears, because imagine this. So this guy appears and he is in this environment where people have many different gods and they are sacrificing babies and doing all of this weird stuff. And then he says, but I am the last one. There is this thing that appeared in a cave and choked me, because angels famously do that. And then, like Usama said, he changes. He goes from having one wife and being called Alamin to being an actual warlord. The story seems to have been created to make him look like he was a very nice guy who then got possessed by an evil entity, and then he became that thing. But Muslims should think, hang on a minute, let me find out about this guy to see if he was really what I'm being told, that he's the last prophet and he knows everything, or if there is anything in his actions that indicates that this guy was possessed by something. He's not in the previous scriptures. They say, no, well, they are corrupted. It's like, isn't that convenient? They follow traditions from all of these different pagan tribes from the region. That is another red flag. It's all red flags. If you try to make the story of Muhammad, making him more clearly possessed by a demon, you couldn't make it up. So it just has to be like the people had to really do this on purpose to make him look as demonic as possible. People just took it seriously, and now they just don't tell Muslims any of that. It's just too much information.
Right.
I'm kind of divided on that, and I think a lot of people are divided on that, because on the one hand, you have people who are saying, a lot of this is made up, and maybe Muhammad didn't even exist, and maybe he's a composite character, and maybe he is based on some previous prophets like Mani, but then you have people saying, no, this can't be, because the Sunnah talks about Muhammad in such a bad light that if it was made up, surely they would have made him look better.
Don't forget, guys, the devil is involved in the picture. And what you and I think should not or could not or would not, the devil knows it very well, and he will put it there to convince you that it is, and or can convince others. Well, it's not, because he should not, could not, of what. deception of Allah, Satan, is beyond our capability of understanding that. So I heard the debate between different people on that topic, and of course they said, well, here is so much negative in Muhammad, this could not be made up. Yes, indeed, the devil make it up to the point that now he got 1.7 billion believe in it. We have no problem with it. So what?
Yeah. So, okay. So this is just a little bit of a map as a reminder. We have Bahrain up here. You've got Iran. Don't forget, a lot of the development of the Quran happened up here, right? In this part of the world. This was Babylon, also known as Iraq. Here you had Abraham came from this area, right? So you've got, and this featured very heavily as well. And here's Aksum. This is the area in Ethiopia that the first Hijrah went to. And of course, here you've got Najran and a place called Haram, Marib, Sana'a. This is Yemen, where also heavily the Babylonian religion was heavily practiced here. These people moved north into Central Arabia here and took their Babylonian religion with them. And don't forget, Nabonidus came from here all the way down, settled up here, and he controlled this region. So he brought his Babylonian religion with him, just to give us some perspective. Aksum. Now, I just want to mention something that someone sent me today, so thank you for that. This is the Aksumite Codex Hypothesis, Origins of the Quranic Text, the Early Monotheist Community, and the Umayyad Construction of Islam by Alexander Lee Ignoble, and it was written last year. I'll just try and do it briefly. This is a revisionist account of Islamic origins, designated the Aksumite Codex Hypothesis. I started this series of talking about Aksum, Ethiopia, what we call Ethiopia today, right, as a place that was influential in Islam. And it looks like this idea is starting to gain traction. So it proceeds from 9 interlocking propositions, but it says that there are too many anomalies in the standard account, which the standard Islamic narrative cannot account for, right? And it says that Mecca, there is no archaeologically attested city of Mecca in the 7th century. Its first documented mention is in 741, and the first evidence in maps is only from 900, saying here it's a retrospective construction, not a historical origin point, right? And then, of course, Muslims were known as Hagarenes, Ishmaelites, Saracens, who did not identify as a religion separate from Christianity and Judaism until at least the year 700, right? And then, of course, the primary driver of the community movement to Aksum in the 7th century by Islamic chronological tradition was not tribal persecution by the Quraysh of a new religion, but the geopolitical catastrophe of Sassanid Persian imperial expansion. So this person is saying basically you had this invasion by the Sassanids, right, from Persia, from Iran, coming into this region, coming across into Oman and coming into this area. And so they escaped. So they've rewritten the narrative basically to say, well, we were persecuted by these guys and we went. So she's saying, no, this seems to be taking an actual historical event and then rewriting it to suit their own narratives. And it says that the Ge'ez language and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church heavily influenced Islam, which we do know. And she says they have an 81-book canon that treated as canonical various Gnostic and apocryphal texts, like the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, the Proto-Evangelium of James, the Ascension of Isaiah, the Book of Enoch, and so on, whose narratives appear in the Quran, known apocryphal Gospels. And the canonical Gospels were not available in Arabic until the 9th century. Your thoughts on that?
Here's the deal. The narrative of Islam 641 AD, that's when Muhammad was 600, actually 23, that's when he moved from Mecca to Medina. But the existence of Mecca he was born 570 AD, and it's actually, they're telling us at that time, 570 AD, Mecca was a famous location, very important strategic city, which means you should have some reference to it. Go a good 100, 200 years before that. We don't have any record of Mecca as an existing city, important or not, in the 4th, 5th, century, 6th century. That's a problem. You're not talking about just this city was born at the time of the birth of Muhammad. That city, according to their story, according to their narrative, it's been there for many years. Very famous one. As a matter of fact, if you want to tie it right, it go back to 1800 years before Christ. If you want to put Abraham taking his son Ishmael and Hagar to the same place where Mecca is. So that city have to be at least 1800 years before Christ. That is 2600 years before Muhammad. I mean, I'm saying 2400 years before Muhammad. How can a city be that old and we know nothing about it and nobody have an idea of anything about it until the 7th centuries or 8th centuries? That makes no sense.
Correct.
That makes the whole story of Islam is now thrown in the trash can.
They seem to be reusing actual historical events, but repurposing them into the Islamic narrative and rewriting. They do mention something, and I gave this to JC today, and I think we'll read it and maybe do a talk on this particular paper. But the Quranic text, according to the author, I haven't read the whole thing, I've just read the intro. The Quranic text is written not in the Qureshi dialect of the Hijaz, as Islamic tradition claims, but in Nabatean Arabic, the dialect of the Petra region and southern Levant. Now, we know there's also Aramaic, which is basically Aramaic, which comes before Arabic. Arabic as a language only really formed in what, the 6th century, 7th century? 6th century, let's say, 4th to 6th. So it's very late. So there are questions around that. So this is something to get into. Yeah.
If you want to read the Arabic with the vowels and with the dot, you have to go back to the 8th century. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So we'll get to that paper. So now let's have a look at the symbol for the moon god, Al-Makkah. Okay, the Makkah, the god called Makkah, or maybe there's a city called Makkah in Arabia. I don't know. There could be a very holy city in Mecca called Makkah. Makkah. Anyone heard of a city called Makkah in Saudi?
No, never. It's news.
Yeah. So notice here, these symbols go back as much as like 4,000 years. Okay, and you've got the moon. You've got a little thing here in the middle. You've got the moon symbol as well. Right, so the Sabaean moon god Al-Makkah was the king of the gods, similar to the Mesopotamian moon god Nana. He was also known as Shin or Sin, Nanar, Nana Shwen, one of the oldest deities in the Mesopotamian or the Babylonian pantheon. Al-Makkah was the main god of Yemen and Aksum before Christianity, and you had Shamash as the sun god. Somalians also worshipped Al-Makkah, although some Somalis and Kushites worshipped Waq. Now, remember what I said before, that when you have the Church of Christ the Redeemer, then you have the Church of the Lamb, you have the Church of the Savior. That's not 3 different religions. Those are just 3 different aspects of the deity. Could be the very same deity. They're just looking at different aspects of the deity. So Waq could well be Al-Makkah, but just a different aspect. It could be Waq, could be mercy or something, the God of mercy. Yes?
I'm just wondering, is this supposed to be a hand? Because if it's supposed to be a hand, it kind of looks like the hand of Fatima, right?
No, you've got pillars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That we're using pillars. And that's like, remember, this is a symbol of the king. You can see the writing here. It's the, sorry, Usama?
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying the 5, not just the fingers, but the 5 is the pillars. Yeah.
Oh, wow, dude, for Christ, thank you very much. He says, don't mind me just paying my jizya. Been away for a while because the cowards hacked my stuff. I'm back now. Oh, man, sorry to hear that. Look, if I can give you a license for the security package I use on my computer. If that would help. I can give you an annual license if you would like that. Yeah, sorry to hear that, man. That's horrible when people, I have heavy security on my system. I have crazy security.
Which I have now. Listen, I have now. Thanks for
I bought Usama security for his computer as well, because just so you guys know, I get regular attempts to hack into my phone and my email. I have my securities like, do you want to authorize this login to your account? Do you want to authorize this? Sometimes I get it like 10 times a day. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
So welcome. Dude for Christ, reach out to me. It's very easy to Google my email. Just look for my name and my email. Send me an email. I will send you a license key. I think I have one still left, so I will sort you out. But thank you for the donation. Really kind. Okay, Nabonidus, the temple of Shin and Nana. So Nabonidus glorified the god Shin. His son was Belshazzar. We know him from the book of Daniel, with the writing on the wall. He was 10 years in Tamas, Saudi Arabia. Yemen is a large oasis with a long history of settlement, right? This is at a point where the trade route between Medina and Duma begins to cross the desert. It's just north of Medina, and it was a center of moon worship because Nabonidus brought the Babylonian pantheon with him, and he was the son-in-law of King Nebuchadnezzar. Isn't that odd? Who's mentioned in the Bible? His mother was the high priestess of Shin in Haran. His daughter was at Ur. Ur is where supposedly Abraham was. So he was very much involved with this kind of magic and astrological deity worship, right? So his mother was a high priestess of Shin. Abraham's origin is in Ur, in Genesis 11:28, in Haran, right? Now, understand that until the 1930s, I'm not going to go into long depth on this, but until the 1930s, it was commonly understood that the Ur that is referred to, because there are at least 5 or 6 Urs that are known in history, right, from archaeologists. There are a number of places with that name, and it was understood to be a place in the northern Syria, Turkey area. That was the common understanding until a very famous archaeologist, British archaeologist, with ties to the king and so on, he uncovered the city of Ur, what he called Ur in Iraq, and then he insisted this was the city, and then everyone went with him because he was so influential. But it conflicts with the geography of the Bible, saying that, of course, I think it was Abraham did not have to cross the river or something of that type. I've discussed it in the past. Can't remember all the details right now. But so there's a city called Ur up north, which would much better fit the route that Abraham and his father took on the way into Canaan. So the word Yathrib appears in an inscription found in Haran, belonging to the Babylonian king Nabonidus. Yathrib was the name of Medina. And Yathrib is also a city found just north of Baghdad. So now you have these connections. Any thoughts from you, JC, on that?
No, that seems to make sense to me. All good.
Any thoughts, Usama? I see you nodding your head, going.
Yeah, well, the Yathrib. Yathrib is the original name for the city of Medina. Okay, and now you tell me there's another Yathrib in Iraq.
And, just north of Baghdad, about 20 k's outside of Baghdad. Yeah.
How big is this in Baghdad?
I know it's a town that's been there since forever. So
you know this for a fact, huh?
Well, look, remember you've been on with Odon, right? Odon showed us there's cities that are in Saudi Arabia, which they claim are historical cities, which are named after cities in Syria and in Iraq. So, they transplanted those place names, stuck them in Saudi Arabia, and now they're there. But these places existed before Islam in Syria, in Iraq, in all these places where they're referencing all these gods and all of these people and so on that come from them.
I wish we can have sometime a Muslim man who have logic or common sense to come and I want to hear their side. Literally, I feel like if we have a Muslim person who have a little bit common sense, I don't want some guy who's so sharp. Just somebody we can carry conversation and ask him to explain this to us. This is a very important fact, Lloyd, and we're using it and we talk about lightly, like, oh well, here we go.
Yeah, no one is gonna do that. You guys know that no one is gonna do that. That's not how they defend Islam. They can't really argue. That's not how that works. It's not by logical argumentation. That's not how Islam is spread. Islam is spread using force, using violence, because that's the only way you can spread it. If you can't have a logical discussion, then you can't have a logical discussion. It would be great if you could, but no one is gonna do that.
Yeah.
If I may, just like actually Lloyd read earlier, like there is no evidence of Mecca until the 8th century. It's like Muslims could just step in and prove that that claim is wrong, just show it. But they don't even do that. I mean, J. Smith has been asking for that proof for decades now. They don't engage in that. They don't try. They don't have that proof. The Imams will tell them, don't engage in this sort of things. They are nonsense. They are not interested, like you said, Emmanuel, to providing the proof. So we now realize that what we have to do is keep digging. We cannot just sit in one piece of evidence and say, prove it, prove it, prove it, because 99.9% of Muslims are never going to hear about that claim. So it's about just getting as many answers as possible and make it a snowball, educating the non-Muslims so that they can refute claims. Muslims, they have been told not to listen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've poisoned the well in advance. And like CP says, an honest Muslim is an ex-Muslim. And just so you know, this is the area where the Babylonian religion was very powerful, very influential, but also south. In fact, there's a theory that I was reading in one of the papers. We'll probably get to it towards the end. But people were saying that while the Babylonian pantheon was obviously big in Iraq, in this area here in Mesopotamia, this crescent that we see, right? And it clearly the Yemenis and also those in Ethiopia, Aksum in East Africa, North and East Africa, were following the same pantheon, the same religion. One archaeologist was saying, in his mind, it actually started in Yemen, and the Yemenis took it up the coast here to Babylon, not the other way around. So it went from Yemen up here into Babylon. It became the established religion in Babylon, and then it came back down with Nabonidus.
I go the other way better, to be honest with you, because think about the Babylonians existed for hundreds of years. That's the oldest civilization before the Egyptian. These are the only two oldest civilization. And Abraham brought Sheba in Yemen from his wife Keturah, and that is the beginning of Yemen. So the Arab of Yemen are the descendant of Keturah and Abraham, but Babylonian was there for hundreds of years before Abraham was.
No, fair enough. Okay, so good point there. So Nabonidus, 556 to 539 BC, last king of Babylon, of the Sumerian and Mesopotamian cultures, related to Nebuchadnezzar, childhood in Sabian Haran. That's, again, where Abraham came from. Abraham's grandfather was called Haran, a major site of worship for the moon god Shin. He was called the first archaeologist, apparently. He rearranged the Babylonian pantheon of gods. Okay, he preferred Marduk at one point, right? He's pictured on an engraving in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, odd. He's on an engraving. The Babylonian king, the last king of Babylon, is pictured on an engraving in Saudi Arabia. Let me just move this over. Excuse me. Let me just bring this back. Isn't that odd? I mean, you'd think he'd be pictured on an engraving in Babylon, but here he is wearing a wizard's cap with his staff and robe, and here you see the moon symbol. You also see the sort of, Isis wings or Osiris symbol, the Egyptian symbol, clearly influenced them. And here you see, do you know of a word in Arabic that uses this letter, Usama?
I don't know. I cannot see it.
This is the snake, but think of the name for Allah. Isn't there kind of a vague similarity there?
The last portion of Allah, Lam He.
So
that is the word. That's the word Leh.
What did you say, Usama?
Lam He. The word Leh.
Like al Leh. No.
The big lay in the right is Lam, and the circle on the left is a letter He. So it is Leh. Easy Arabic, easy.
Okay, that's fascinating. So now
I think
Jason?
what you will find is that this guy here in this drawing was a prophet of Allah.
Mashallah.
Mashallah. So he lived in Tayma in Saudi Arabia for 10 years. I mean, that's a really...
Lloyd, if you don't mind, the guy with the first picture, that is how most pictures we see from the Babylonian people. All pictures, they look like this guy on the right hand. Egyptian did not have that. They actually have the hat on the top with the snake or whatever. But this is how I see always all Babylonian kings and rulers. Just like that.
Right. So let me just take this away because I messed up my slide, I notice.
If you want, I can say a bit about this Babylonian king. You want me to?
Yeah, don't take too much time, but sure, please.
Okay, don't take too much time. There's a lot I could get into. Could you go back to the picture you just showed?
Yeah, let me go back to the picture. Here it is. This guy. Yep.
No, to make it bigger again, so people can see it. Okay, great. Okay, so that's the Babylonian king, right? The cap looks like a what do you call that? A Phrygian cap. Basically similar to a Smurf hat nowadays, but this is also related to the to this kind of, what I talked about with David Talbot, to the Saturn configuration. Everything here is actually related to the Saturn configuration. But if you don't believe in the Saturn configuration, we can just say all of these are aspects of pagan planetary deities. I mean, that much is obvious.
Astrological. You don't have to go into too much detail. I'll get to that.
Okay. Just
even the cool over here, even this cool. This is very similar. You'll see this in Egyptian representations of Osiris with this coil of hair. You'll see it even in Egypt. And I mean, here you've got an Egyptian symbol, the flying ankh. I think it's called.
So I could get more into these symbols are all very significant, and I could get more into this. And of course, they all also relate to Islam. I mean, you can already kind of see that, right? And you guys started to talk about that. I could talk more about that, but okay, I'm not gonna go into that because that would take too long. So, but what I do want to say is, last time we did the stream, I think it was Lloyd. You mentioned Isaiah. How do you pronounce it in English? Isaiah, right? Isaiah, and especially Isaiah 14, right? Where it talks, where actually it talks about Lucifer, the morning star. But people get that confused. People nowadays think, oh, Lucifer is the devil. No, not in Isaiah 14. In Isaiah 14, Lucifer is actually referring to a Babylonian king, right? Like the kind of king we see here, right? Maybe that's who it is referring to. And the reason he is called a morning star is you can see that in the symbolism as well. A lot of these symbols are symbols for the morning star, planetary constellations and stuff like that. And as you know, the morning star is not a star. The morning star is a planet, right? So what the Babylonian kings did, they associated themselves with the morning star, with these kinds of pagan planetary deities, and so they were kind of seen as kind of demigods, even as kind of the representative of God on earth.
The vice regent. So we don't have to go into too much detail. It's just that we're looking at touch points where Islam isn't trying to duplicate the religion, but is using ideas from the religion. They've clearly made their way into it. You've got the guy with his wizard hat and staff. You've got the moon symbol, which we know from Islam. You've got the Egyptian symbol, which we've referenced a few times with Egypt and Islam. You've got this, whatever that is, and you've got this symbol here, which is very similar. If you look at the way Islam is, Allah, hold on, cursive. I mean, they do this fantastic here. I mean, just to go here, if you look at the way that they tend to show off the name of Allah, it's just, you see this one aspect. It's just, there's some kind of similarity to me in terms of the way that this works. Look at this here, and then you can look at the last letter the way they do it here. There's just something to it. I mean, Usama, would I be correct with that? There seems to be this overlap, to me at least. There's just
my perspective on this would be that, like I said, this is based on the morning star. And of course, in Gnosticism, the morning star is, well, of course, he's the good. Nowadays, we see the morning star as Lucifer, as the bad guy. But of course, Gnostics see him as the good guy. And of course, they associate him with the snake. So there you have the association with the snake.
Yeah, I wonder, Usama is frozen, so hold on. Let me just send him a message. I just sent Usama a message. Let's hope he gets that. But notice the crescent moon flags in the region are all traced to the moon god Shin. The crescent flag is the crescent flag symbols, as I've shown previously, not on this episode, but are very common to Islamic countries with having crescent moons. And this moon design is all traceable back to the god Shin, right? And notice there's a trinity of gods. Usama is frozen, so let's hope he can come back. Any thoughts from you, JC, before I go on? But notice you've got the star, the moon, and the sun. You've got three gods. So these are, again, symbolic. And two of them are part of the symbolism of Islam.
Yeah, to a degree, well, on the previous picture,
here's the moon. Yeah.
That what Emmanuel said, yeah, that final thing, although I can see where you're coming from, that it looks like Lach, but it also looks like a snake quite a bit.
It does look like a snake, but then people have been saying the name of Allah looks like a snake anyway.
And the thing with these astronomical symbols, well, the people from the Nabatean region and stuff, the people who were going through the desert, these people were pretty much geniuses. They could traverse the desert, which nobody could, just by looking at the stars. They were phenomenal. So obviously they had a lot of stuff to do with that, just for their own trade. So it doesn't surprise me that if they were worshipping these thousands of years ago, they just carried on until this day, pretty much.
B.Apologetics makes a very good point. Islam is trying to go back to the original religion of Abraham, right? But it doesn't have enough information to do so. So they mix it with the prevailing Abrahamic milieu and the foundations of the Quran, like modern neo-pagans with Samhain. Exactly. They're not following true paganism as it was then, because who knows how it was. But they're doing their reimagined version of it. But notice we've got the three gods, the Trinity here, right? Three separate gods: star, moon, sun. Right? And two of these are now part of the Islamic symbol for their religion. And notice star and moon right here, still part of the Babylonian. So these ideas carry through, and several of the Islamic countries have these symbols on their flags. Usama, any thoughts before I move on?
Yeah, I was going to say, as I showed on the map here, I don't know if you can see it or not. The word in the top is Allah. I hope it says.
Hold on, give me a sec, Usama. Just give me a sec. I'm going to bring you on big. Just move it back from the camera because it's too close. It's blurring. Yeah. There we go.
The word up here is Allah. And if I take L, the first two letters, which is the, you have left is leh. And if you're writing on a rock, not fancy paper, not print with your finger in it, it will look like a snake. It will look whatever shape it is. Depends what it is. Is it a smooth piece of wood? Is it up and down? So obviously we have to examine it closer to see what kind of service the word leh is written on it. But you can write the word Allah in 100 ways. The one you show us, Lloyd, are fancy writings. It is how we make it today, but that's not how it was written a few hundred years ago.
Exactly. So you're looking at a much more crude form of the language. Also, these are like a little bit primitive people carving it on a rock, right? But you seem to have some sort of reference to the La here, right? And then, of course, you've got all of the symbolism and you have the winged, feathered sun disk, Shamash, the god of justice and morality, the seven-pointed star, Ishtar, the goddess of sex, love, and war. She was known as Venus, Aphrodite, Ashtoreth, Attar. And of course, we know that Aphrodite was, St. John of Damascus said they worshipped Aphrodite and had her statue in their temple, right? This is her here, right? The dressed like an angel in this case. But notice you've got also the symbol of the Ankh, again, the Egyptian symbolism. So these symbols, these ideas carry through from religion to religion. So it doesn't quite die out. It gets reimagined, but it gets repurposed as well. And notice here you've got another symbol of him, the same little dunce's cap, the staff, and you've got the moon disc, right? The moons with the disc. You've got the little Egyptian symbol, and you've got the star again. So
may I just add something very quickly? from the previous picture. So John of Damascus, when he said about Aphrodite, he actually said that it was they had the head of Aphrodite. That is actually what they kissed. So if we could actually do analysis on the black stone, it could be that it could have been just one of these idols, and it was the head of Aphrodite. That's what he said. But also in other shows, you've shown the image of the door of the Kaaba with these symbols. If at one point today you can actually show it, that would be great.
Do you want me to show it?
Yeah, I think it's useful probably for people to see that those symbols are still very present.
Let me
It brings
find
joy
it.
to my heart.
Yeah, you know we want to bring joy to your heart. There we go. This is the door of the Kaaba, and you still have the sun disk and the moon as a pair on, because they're husband and wife, they're couple, just as you would have in the Babylonian religion and the religions before it, in the cultures before it. You've got the sun and the moon.
You made this up. This is not true. You made it up. It is a Photoshop.
As I said, if Islam was the religion of the banana, they'd have banana symbols. Christians have a cross. Why? It's historically and theologically relevant. Islam has the moon and the freaking star because...
Brother, if you take the cross out of Christianity, nothing is left.
The crescent kind of looks like a banana. But I feel this is a very, very nice door. I mean, no reason to be ashamed of it. It's like, if I was a Muslim, I would be proud of it. I would be like, oh, look, what a nice door.
Yeah, this is the previous door, and this is the new one with gold layers on it, gold leaf on it. So, yeah, but I mean, it's just odd that they maintain the symbolism, the sun here.
What happened to the old door?
Say again?
What happened to the old door?
I think this is the 12th or 16th door. I think they've had like 12 or 16 doors, and this is like, they keep changing it every few years.
Maybe actually you can find one of the old doors in the Epstein Island. It's possible.
I was going to ask, did they send it with the rugs, the covering of the Kaaba to Epstein, or maybe just my thoughts?
I have no idea. Welcome, London Man. You are welcome to restream any of my shows or any of our shows to your community. I know you said you'd like to come on. It's not really an open panel. I don't know you as yet. I mean, so, but how about you get in touch with me? My About page has an email alias you can use, or you can just Google my name, Lloyd De Jongh, and find me, send me an email. Let's chat, and then we can always talk about having you contribute, if you'd like, in one of the upcoming shows. So yeah, but look, if you'd like to add anything into the chat, I'm not necessarily dissecting everything in detail. I'm just presenting these constant overlaps of Islam and the Islamic narrative, the Islamic seerah, the hadiths, and so on, with these constant symbolism from former pagan religions. And it's just you can't miss it. They're just everywhere. So Anunit was an Assyrian or Chaldean, that would be, from Iraq, Chaldean goddess worshipped by early kings. She's supposed to have resembled the Venus of the Greeks. She was a star by which was identified by the Assyrians with the goddess Ishtar, the daughter of the moon god Shin. Okay, then Cyrus. This is an account given by Nabonidus of his restoration of the temple of the moon god at Haran, and of the temples of the sun god and of Anunit at Sepharvaim. So he brought this religion with him, this whole astrological religion. And Sepharvaim was Adramelech, Adram-Malik. So then you're going to get back to Molech. Yes.
Here you can see again, all this symbolism is actually related, like I said, to the morning star, Lucifer in Latin, and Venus again, the morning star, right? So these ancient pagans were worshipping the morning star, and that's what you see with the star and crescent. That represents the morning star.
All right. Yeah. So, but just the idea is that there's just so much overlap, and you just find these constant connections with these pagan deities, with these astrological symbols, astrological religion. But I'll get into that as I get into the archaeology towards the end again. We'll talk. So Tamar's influence. Now, this is where Nabonidus settled, right? When he left Babylon, he settled for 10 years in Tamar, right? And Tamar's position, they are forced to stimulate the other town states. They had little town states or little small kingdoms of the Oases of Arabia to partake to some degree in the civilizations of the surrounding countries, right? While trying to preserve or reestablish their independence. Now, that is in the Encyclopedia of Islam, Volume 1, page 883. It says that the religions around Arabia would have influenced the religion in Arabia, and they would have borrowed little bits and pieces to make their own religion. And it says that different scripts were used and developed. Even the clansmen of the nomadic tribes knew how to write. Now, it's interesting. If you go through the archaeology of Arabia prior to Muhammad, right, there is graffiti, there are drawings, there are documents. The Yemenis were prolific writers. They were traders, and as tradesmen, as salesmen who traveled with their boats and their camels and donkeys all up and down the coast and all through the mountains to trade as far away as Turkey and India and Africa, even with the Romans in the Byzantine Empire and others, and Spain and Greece potentially, they wrote things down. So writing was rife in multiple languages all across Arabia. And then Muhammad comes, and there's no writing for 200 years. So for thousands of years before Muhammad, there was writing. And then when Muhammad arrived, suddenly, pooh, nothing. Isn't that just convenient?
Even though you have to understand now that Muhammad claims in the Quran that, the language of Islam is the language of the God, it's the language of Abraham, it is the Arabic. So how in the world they were talking Arabic, writing Arabic for all these hundreds of years, and even for Muhammad to come with the final religion, with the final Quran, which was not written for another 160, 170, whatever years, something is not adding here. We're missing few zeros,
Yeah. London Man says something very interesting. He says that it's a concave system. The moon is inside the Earth, and the universe is inside the moon. Now, I mean, certainly, I know once you get to these ideas, they can be pretty bizarre. I'm not really trying to dig into the meaning that as they would be for the Babylonians specifically, or it's just that Islam has obviously taken these ideas, misinterpreted them, reused them, repurposed them. For instance, Western scholars made the error of assuming, for instance, that the sun god was the main god when they got to Arabia, because in Rome and such, the sun is the male, the sun is the main god, except that is reversed in Arabia. There, the moon is the main deity, which is male, and the sun becomes female and the secondary deity. So, and then also what happened was, as is also described in the Islamic literature, they would go to Greece, they would go to wherever, and they would come back with the gods of that place. So they would have the god, they would have the god Smurf, right? They'd bring back the Smurf idol, stick it wherever, and then of course the Western scholars would go, oh my God, it's the god Smurf. They were worshiping the god Smurf. No, they just liked the look of the god, but they had a god that was called, Zeus. But the god Smurf looked like their idea of the god Zeus. They would stick him in whatever temple. And of course, they saw him as a totally different god, but they were just buying it from someone else, somewhere else. So sometimes there's misunderstandings that happen. So we don't want to get too hung up on the specifics. I'm just kind of putting out these ideas. And any thoughts from you guys?
If the true numbers we receive from the narratives in Islam, 360 gods in the Kaaba, which Muhammad claimed to destroy, that means, man, what you're telling us right now, Lord, it can be 100% fact. People just travel with their gods, they find another idol, buy another idol, add it to the other idols, and we got 10, 20, 50, 360 gods. If it happened according to their mathematics, their numbers, what you're telling us is not a very illogical theory. It's actually very logical theory. Gods was moved from one place to another, and here they are, came into that place where the Arab were worshiping all these different gods.
Yeah, and Hubal was associated with the moon and divination, and we see that as well within the Sirah, as we covered before. Yeah, and also with Baal. Okay, so different scripts, right? So there are several important archaeological sites on the coast of the Arab-Persian Gulf. On the continent alone, the most significant are Taj al-Dur and Al-Mulaya, progressively abandoned during the first centuries of the Christian era. At the north of the Hejaz, there are surviving documents written in Aramaic. I mean, there's even the hadith that JC presented, where one corner of the Kaaba, there was a stone and it was written in Aramaic, and they had to find a Jew to read it for them. And there are also, or rather, there's Aramaic language and script, and there are various varieties of the two. It would seem that Aramaic was the mother tongue of part of the population, especially the elites spoke Aramaic. A large number of Aramaic-speaking churchmen and religious authors in the Nestorian Church, the Church of the East. That's the Syrian Church. That is, you're looking at the border, Syria, Turkey, right? And this is also, you're looking at Iraq. So in other words, you had a confluence of, in Hira, we spoke of Hira previously. In Hira, you had the Muslims, because that became the political capital before it became Kufa, Baghdad. Then also you had the Church of the East had their representatives there. You had the Jews there with their little yeshivas, and you had with the Iranians, the Sasanians, right next door. So you had the confluence of all of these. So you had the Nestorian Church that came from the Gulf, especially in the 7th century. Then you have text in Sabaean script, that's the Yemeni script, relatively common before the Christian era became exceptional in later centuries. In the Gulf, texts in foreign languages like Akkadian, Imperial Aramaic, Nabatean, Greek, and Latin are common. In southern Arabia, 5 inscriptions have been found in Ge'ez, or classical Ethiopic, 2 in Hebrew, 3 in Sabaic, Nabatean bilinguals, and a Greek and Latin inscription, 1 inscription in Greek, 1 in Nabatean, and finally 1 in Palmyrenian. There's also graffiti in Greek, Nabatean, Palmyrenian, as well as Indian graffiti and Ge'ez graffiti on caves in the region. So for 2,000 years before Mo comes along, there is writing in a dozen languages with hundreds of educated people every year writing stuff. And Mo comes along and suddenly, no, it was the freaking Java Jahiliya. Nobody knew Jack. Nobody could read and write. Bullshit. Thoughts, guys?
That's it's amazing, Lloyd. If we did not have any of these graffitis, any of these writings of any of these languages, it will make sense. You know, the writings was not that famous in such land in such time. That's why it took time for the Quran to come out, 150 or whatever, 200 years after Muhammad. But having all these languages inside the Saudi Arabia, in the southern Saudi Arabia, the most important holy thing for them is the Quran. You should have the Quran in thousands and thousands of locations, if not whole Quran, portion of the Quran, as Muslims use it as a blessing.
Yeah. I mean, from north to south, from all the way from Iraq, literally all the way down to Yemen. Even on islands, they have found writing, inscriptions, dozens of languages, right? Thousands of inscriptions.
But not any portion
the
from the
holiest,
Quran.
most advanced city in Islam, and there's exactly 0.0 writing. Makes no sense.
Yeah. 0.0. That's an amazing number. That's a huge number.
Yeah, true. It's too many zeros. I mean, it's nothing. It should be blank.
Yeah.
JC, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, yes, looking at the Quran, you've shown the languages that were used, the words that were identified, and it is mostly, well, Arabic and also, well, the foreign words, Aramaic. And even Gabriel Reynolds has said the same thing. The people who wrote the Quran, they were certainly bilingual, at the very least. They obviously had other influences, but this was a given. The one thing that I found really odd is that when we look at the archaeology, we have all of this information, but like you said, when it comes to Arabic and about the things that we're interested in, they are not there. And Muslims, they have a reputation for destroying anything that is not convenient. So I reckon that it is more likely that there were a lot of things written in different areas showing what was happening with Islam, calling Jesus God and these sort of things in Arabic. And all of those things, they were destroyed because, yeah, it must have happened that way.
I mean, look, there's London man who says he's knowledgeable on the subject. Should I invite him up for a minute or two just to introduce himself and say something? Just for a couple of minutes, so London man, tell you what, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, and maybe if you have any thoughts you'd like to add, because I'm already in the flow, but I'll give you a moment to come up. I'll drop this in the chat, and you can come up, say hello, and add any thoughts that you would like to add for a minute
I think
or
actually,
two.
by the way, we should have said the name or the tag is London man, so I guess that means he's a Muslim.
I have no idea. No, I don't think so. No, it doesn't seem to be. So now it's just crazy that you've got all of this archaeology that proves pre-Islam there was huge amounts of education. That the Yemenis were traders. We know that they took camels and they went through the desert. We know for a fact that they had cities. We know that they had temples. We know that they had records that they kept of. Now, Muhammad was also a trader. Muhammad also took camels all the way to Syria and all the way to wherever the heck they claim he went. Do we have a single surviving written record of his? No, we don't.
And we know from the days of Solomon, that's 1,000 years before Christ, that the Queen of Sheba traveled all the way from Yemen to Jerusalem. So we have biblical record of people traveling from the east, from the south to the north, and that is 100% a fact. So it's not just the story about the traveling, the north and the south, 2 trips of every summer and winter for merchandise, but also we got the biblical record to prove it.
Yep, and you've got archaeology that proves. Now, these people were around as much as 2,000-3,000 years before Islam, and we've got records of them today, written records. But of course, for Muhammad, like nothing. Isn't that weird? Just so convenient.
I know why. I know why, Lloyd. You want to hear it? Lloyd.
Tell me.
It's very simple. Allah leads astray whom he will, and he guides whom he will. And Allah made it just to look like that, for people like us to be led astray and will never accept the truth of the word of Allah, of the Quran, or the Prophet Muhammad. That's what is the wisdom of Allah. See?
Yeah, let me just finish this. So in the early polytheistic period, the Hadrami pantheon shows a close similarity to other South Arabian areas dominated by the astral triad of moon, sun, and Venus star, except that the moon god in Hadramaut bore the distinctive name Shin, borrowed from the Babylonian religion. In fact, he's commonly referred to as Sin of Ilm, and it has been conjectured that the latter term is the name of the principal shrine of this deity. So, KJV Research, hello?
Mic check.
We can hear you just fine. Yeah, I'll give you a minute or two. Just quickly introduce yourself and tell me if you have any thoughts, anything. And then later on we can talk and see if we'd like to add you just to, add to the discussion in the future.
Thank you. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, first of all. I'm from London, as you can tell by the name, London man, it's in the name. But this is a brilliant topic with the moon, right? Not many people speak about the moon. When they speak about the moon, they only speak about it from a standard academic point, right? The things that we've been taught in school and these nature. But when you do some more research, the story becomes very wild, right? Through my research, it seems like the moon plays a bigger part than what we've been told. I think we are.
Go on.
Sorry, I think we are actually a part of the moon, meaning as above, so below. When you see the moon in the sky, it's a reflection of ourselves.
That would be a Gnostic view, which is not something we're really discussing here so much. Because do you have anything relevant to add to this topic? Was there anything you wanted to add that would shed some light on this particular topic?
Okay, well, you guys were talking about the influence of Islam, and clearly it's a moon-based culture, right? It's a moon-based culture, and they try to hide it by hiding the mother, right? They hid the mother to hide the moon culture. And the further you go back in Islam, everything is pointing to the mother and the moon, and they're trying to hide it by hiding the mother and the woman itself.
The Sufis do claim, from what I've read, the Sufis do make, and these are the highest scholars in Islam, the most highly qualified, that Allah internally is female. It has an external and an internal aspect. Male externally, female internally.
Yes, well, that is a good point you make, because some people, well, I've heard a few people say this, and a few scholars say that the moon actually plays both attributes, mother and father, in a sense, right? It's got two. Sorry, what's that? Sorry, my mic is going crazy. Can you mic check? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Yeah, just let us know.
Thank you. Yes. Some people believe that the moon has two attributes to it, feminine and non-feminine, and it's kind of like playing the mother and father role. Some people believe that this is where the first hermaphrodite phrase would have come from, right? It's
Okay.
where you get the
Yeah, but this
hermaphrodite.
this kind of off the topic for us on this though. I'm not sure if it.
London man, what we discussed here is the connections of Islam, or rather where they took their influences from. Are you aware of the connections of Islam or this history of Islam, or is your interest about the moon as a thing as opposed to the connections
the
with
cult
the
issue
history?
and so on, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I probably don't have much connection to Islam as much as you guys, but my main interest is in the moon itself. But studying the moon, I find out that Islam is a big influence, or the moon is a big influence to Islam.
No, I mean that's exactly what this whole series is about. I mean, we're on for the 4th episode here, and this much is true. I mean, it's the actual, literally, it's the thing they put on top of their mosques. They put a symbol of the moon, and it's a god in ancient Arabia. It's called the Hilal. So yeah, as I said, I'd give you a couple of minutes. So look, we can always talk again, right, and see. But if you have anything of great relevance, that to the topic. But I'm not here really to discuss the moon as an occult symbol and go into all of that kind of thing. It's not really the aim
No
of
problem.
this particular talk.
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fall back into the chat room and listen while you guys deliver this message to us.
Okay. Well, thanks for stopping by then.
London man, just before you go, I just want to ask you. So you are a Gnostic. You consider yourself a Gnostic?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting because I'm an ex-Gnostic, so to say. Okay. So, but it's interesting to be able to talk to a current Gnostic. That's very interesting. But yeah, it's not the topic right now. So yeah.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for letting me on to say a few words. I appreciate that a lot. I will be listening now in the chat room, and I will contribute in the chat room.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you
Cheers,
then for coming
guys.
on.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, so interestingly, one thing, okay, the moon god from Hadramaut, that's Yemen, right, bore the distinctive name Shin, borrowed from the Babylonian religion. He is commonly referred to as the sin of Ilm. Now remember, I mentioned that the root of Islam is the letters SLM. We know it for shalom. We know it for salam, peace, shalom, salam, right? Even Jerusalem, right? In theory, when it was Canaan and pagan, there's one theory that says you had the god Shalim, which is a known god of the region, and you had the Jeru, or the temple, or the altar of Shalim. And that's where the name Jerusalem apparently comes from. That's at least one story. Mm-hmm. But notice in English, we'd say the sin of Elam, whereas in their language, they wouldn't have the word of. They would have sin Elam, SLM. Okay, which is again like very similar to the root of Islam, SLM, the Arabic root.
No, brother Lloyd. Islam and salam, they're two different words of two different roots. Salam, shalom is peace. Islam, when you put the alif before the word salam, it became submit or surrender. It is in the Arabic language. There are two completely different words of two different roots.
Exactly. So, but the root, but also, I mean, just that the letters S, L, and M, that root, the root consonants are there. But also, prior to Islam creating the word Islam as a religion, right? Submission, which is an Arabic word which comes in the 5th, 6th century, right, or 7th century. The root SLM meant
peace.
Graven idol. Meant graven idol. In all of the religions, in all of that region, from Acadia, Ugarit, Canaanite religion, all of those, the whole region of Arabia, SLM was a reference to a graven idol. And we know from the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not make thee a graven idol and worship it. And so all of them, there was stone idols. So historically, SLM, in all of the languages, all of the religions of that region, pre-Islamic, it was graven idols, these statues they would put in temples. And Islam, weirdly enough, is exactly means also graven idol. So just really odd. So you have the Arabian languages, a number of foreign tongues were in use, okay, including Arabian languages. There was Akkadian documents of the 2nd millennium BC, 2,000 years BC, and they have Akkadian documents. There are Greek texts of the Hellenistic period from the islands of Failaka, and even texts from Bahrain, a few Greek and even Latin rock inscriptions. It is only the Aramaic that is attested with any frequency. Okay, then you have, as proven by a growing corpus of texts, there are also other materials like coins, bronze blocks, potsherds, and the surviving correspondence in Aramaic, known as Syriac, between church authorities in Babylonia and East Arabian clergy. This is what they find, but we don't find coins with Muhammad on them. We don't find letters that Muhammad wrote home or his soldiers were writing to their mommy. Isn't that weird? We have plenty of finds of other languages, but no Arabic, oddly enough.
Because you see, Muhammad used Arabic money, and Arabic deteriorate quicker, so that's why we don't have any money for the Arabian Mohammedan Muslims way of life. You see, I give you the answer, man. Use Arabic paper, Arabic money, Muhammad. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, maybe they didn't write things about Muhammad out of respect because they knew that he was illiterate, so he couldn't write. And then you're writing things is a disrespect to your prophet, So it's possible.
That's even a better answer here from JC. What else do you want, Lloyd? What else do you want? We give you many answers.
Yes, like in the tafsir, it could have been a sausage, could have been an apple. Maybe it was actually a little dog with blue socks. But Brother Umar said it possibly was a little kitten, but a blue
Allah knows
kitten.
best. And Allah knows
then, of
best.
course, Brother Takfir said that it was actually a bird in a tree. So there you go. I mean, yeah, that's okay. Now I want to talk about Haran, the home of Abraham. We won't go too long. A village of Haran exists in Turkey today, atop the ancient one from the Old Testament period. So the old village is there, but it's built on top of the new village is built on top of the old one. The ruins of the old one are still there, and the Turkish government does not permit any archaeology. Found near Haran are villages that bear the names of Abraham's great-grandfather and grandfather, Serug and Nahor, from Genesis. Haran was the father of Lot. The cities of Ur and Haran both had the moon god as their main deity. Terah, father of Abraham, worshipped other gods, as we see in Joshua 24, and he moved his family from Ur to Haran. Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, they were the merchants of thy hand in lambs and rams and goats. In these were they thy merchants. The traffickers of Sheba. The Bible even talks of, and this is the Old Testament, so this goes back 2,000-3,000 years before Islam. Sheba, the Sabaeans, the people from Yemen, were traveling literally all the way up into Turkey, into Haran, through Syria, through Iraq, into Turkey. So the traffickers of Sheba and Ramah, they were thy traffickers. How come they didn't know about the people from Mecca?
Because they were humble. They don't want to be shown as famous people, because this is a humility as Allah meant it to be.
But they knew about Sheba. They knew about Yemen. How come they didn't know
arrogant.
about Arabia?
Listen, brother. The sheep and Yemen and that queen and all, these are arrogant people. Not like the Arab, the humble one, Prophet Muhammad. Very humble.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I think it's because the Meccans were very subtle.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. They knew about Sabah. You'll see it here. They knew about this region. Sana'a in Yemen. They knew about this region. They were trading with the people from this region. But they didn't know about the guys just across the border. Right? It seems to be, again, this is the Encyclopedia of Islam. It seems to be of great importance for the cultural and religious development of the quote-unquote Arabs that Nabonidus of Babylonia conquered Tamar in 550 BC. He even made expedition as far as Yathrib. He built a palace and temple in Tamar, and he made this place the center of his religion and cult around the Aramaean moon god Shin, perhaps with the sun disk resting in the crescent as the main symbol of this religion. So a little moon with a little dot inside it. Fascinating. There should be investigations on the close resemblance between this cult and that of South Arabia and Ethiopia. Shin was the state god of Hadramaut, that's here, since the earliest inscriptions of this state.
And that's hundreds of years before Christ. I mean, this is very serious dates, guys. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, and these guys persisted with this religion until like the 3rd century. And somehow it didn't influence the Arabs at all. And it says here in this, no, that it did. This was the dominant religion until like the 3rd century.
Islam seems to me like a sponge. It soaks up everything it comes into contact with.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, correct. Now, from Terah to Al-Makkah, okay? Al-Makkah is the name that they gave to the moon god Shin, okay? Also known as Hubal. Hubal just means he who is Baal. Who is the prefix he who is, right? So he who is Baal, right? The one who is Baal. Okay, Elam is the name given to the moon by the southern Hebrews. Variants of Elam were Era, Etera, Il-Makkah, oh my gosh, Al-Makkah, Jerah, Shahar, and Terah. Okay, the name of Abraham's father, which is why the Muslims wanted to go back to the original religion of Abraham. And Yam, okay, Yam, the Babylonian sea god, was killed by Baal with 2 clubs fashioned by the maker god, Qatar Wahasis. Now, interesting, the Battle of Yamama, maybe, who knows? But when you speak to the Qataris, have a look and try and see what is the foundation of the name of the country, Qatar. Where does the name come from? You're going to find nobody knows. The scholars will say, well, you know, we think it has something to do with water, you know, with the ocean. That's the best reference I could find. Scholars say it might have something to do with the ocean. Well, it's very interesting that the sea god, the Babylonian sea god, was killed by Baal with 2 clubs fashioned by Qatar Wahasis. See, that's the only reference I could find to Qatar as the name of the country. It's named after this maker god. And the two clubs were called Driver and Expeller. With Driver, he was struck on the body and driven from his throne. With Expeller, he was struck in the head and driven from the seat of his authority. Usama, you're sitting there looking very thoughtful.
I am. I'm just learning. I'm learning, brother. I wish I met you 20 years ago, but you're coming late in my life.
Better late than never, man. No,
Yeah, I know.
20 years ago, I came from Africa. I couldn't even read. You know that Africans were surviving on $1 a day. So, guys, if you want to support the channel, please send me $1 so that I can eat. Because, as you know, Africans survive
You make a big
with
difference. Yeah.
$1 a day. If you send me $2, I can even have dessert, maybe.
Oh, my word. But you're no longer living in Africa, brother. That dollar will not buy you a cup of coffee. So be serious. Make it a 10, okay?
Are you serious? Wow. So the Reader's Digest need to up their numbers. Oh my God. So remember when people were telling you in Europe about the starving people in Africa,
That's true.
They were talking about me. Okay.
So do I. Yeah, so do I.
So Terah means ibex. Now the name Terah, this is the name of Abraham's father, right? Which obviously Muslims call Azar for some reason. Terah means ibex, which in ancient times was a well-known moon symbol. Here's the ibex, the animal with the curved horns. It was a moon symbol on account of the ibex's curved horns. Okay, Egerton Sykes, well-known historian of the day, wrote that Terah was a theophoric name. In other words, the name of a god, of a deity. Terah is the ancient Semitic name for the moon, equated with Terah, the father of Abraham. And the moon was known as Etera and Jerah. Al-Makkah, Makkah, back to the god called Makkah, also known as Allah, also known as Hubal, also known by a bunch of other names as the moon god Shin, is called the master of the ibex or the lord of the ibexes. Isn't that odd? Now, Muslims are going back to the original religion of Abraham because they say he never became the patriarch of the Jews. So they want to go back to the religion he had before the Jews concocted a whole story. Abraham's younger brother was named after the city Haran. Haran was the ancient city of the moon. This was the official city of the moon god. So the name Haran seems to have been a theophoric name synonymous with the moon god Shin of Babylon. And the temple of Bilqis, the queen of Sheba, was a moon god temple, which in fact misled the Arabs to think that Solomon's god Yahweh must be a moon god.
Yeah. I know biblically and the study of theology about Solomon, he made a mistake. He made a mistake because he married so many of these foreign women, and he sadly did not worship, by the way. We know it's theologically 100%. Solomon did not worship any of these gods, but he allowed these wives and these concubines of his to worship their gods, and he helped them to build temples for them in even in the land of Israel. And that's what the fall of Solomon is. So yes, we know for sure Solomon met with the Queen of Sheba, and I guarantee you there is some influence between the Queen of Sheba and Solomon. We do not know if she was married to him or whatever in a relationship, because you talk about hundreds, 300 wives and 700 concubines. Who knows what was her relationship with him? But I can see the connection between the moon god and Allah, the Elohim, the God of Solomon. You know what? I wish we can get more material to dig deeper.
But think how Abraham is central to Islam. They claim Abraham, and they only started claiming him after the Jews rejected him. Then he said, no, Abraham is one of us. We're following his original religion. And we know from the Bible, he was worshiping pillars, right? Stone pillars. He was worshiping trees, upright symbols, right? Idols. And he left that, and he becomes the patriarch of the Jews. He follows Yahweh.
So are you trying to tell me, Brother Lloyd, are you trying to tell me that the Muslims go back to the ancestry of Abraham and the worship of the gods where Abraham left in Babel?
That is what they tell us, right? And now we're seeing that, hold on, all of this moon god stuff, all of this pagan stuff is literally where Abraham's family came from. And Islam said, we're going back to that.
So
Emmanuel,
to put it up to Justin.
Sorry?
Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Usama, finish your thought, and then I'll go to Emmanuel, and we go to JC.
When Abraham left Haran, left first Ur al-Khaldaean and went to Haran, and from Haran, after his father died at the age of 205, he continued on his trip with Lot and his wife and Lot's wife to the promised land. There is no, after that, Abraham had anything to do with the worship of these false gods, because now God chose Abraham, and Abraham knew the true Yahweh, the true God whom he served for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I mean, but we've covered already. They said we follow the religion of Abraham. We went to look for the religion of Abraham. We found it. And you guys corrupted it, but we went back to the original. And wow, this Babylonian religion is exactly what the record shows us.
Yeah.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, it's the other way around. They corrupted it. Because in any case, we're talking about pagans worshipping celestial formations, right? And if you look at the crescent, you can say, oh, it's a crescent or it's the moon, but you can also say, well, what does a crescent look like? It looks like horns, right? That's where you got the divine bull from, that also was worshipped in Egypt. And also, you see that in the Old Testament, with Moses, Moses goes back to the mountain. He comes back, and boom, they're back, worshiping the divine bull. That's what they're worshiping, right? So that's the same formation as the crescent. They look at the sky, they see the crescent, and they think, oh, it's the divine bull, and then they build a golden calf and sacrifice their firstborn or whatever, right? But that's where that all that comes from.
And what we will see the bull symbolism as well as the moon symbol, because many cultures, and we'll come to that as well, specifically in Baal worship, the horns of the bull, and especially within the Yemeni religion that we're going to discuss, which we'll get to, they saw the horns of the bull as the symbol of the moon as well. And they were into bull worship, just like Moses and the golden calf, right? In that story, that was, back to that symbolism. JC, you were going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you are right. So Muslims say that they are trying to bring back the religion of Abraham. And based on everything that you are showing, it looks like they certainly succeeded.
Say that again, please.
It looks like that they certainly succeeded, because everything that you are showing, it seems to actually come from that region, those sort of practices. And that's actually what they're saying, that they are bringing back the religion of Abraham. That seems to be what they have done.
Yeah, because I think they somehow now look, I don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to pose questions. But Islam, obviously, look, they claim to be Abrahamic. They claim to be part of the whole Christian and Jewish inheritance, right? All I'm saying is that I'm not disputing anything that Jay has said about the Northern thesis, and that's fine, and the Jerusalem thesis, but Islam seems to have gone through various stages. And they tried to obviously adopt a little bit of everything, but they clearly were trying to adopt this, and eventually they had to get rid of some of it. They had to get rid of it because it's embarrassing, and then eventually they became more Jewish and Christian, right? But they couldn't get rid of it. There was, I think, so much of a written corpus of this garbage, of this evidence of their paganism, that they couldn't get rid of everything from the record. So now you've got this soup made of literally everything going back 5,000-6,000 years. Usama,
Yeah.
you're nodding your head there.
Islam has evolved so many times throughout, even from the Muslim narrative alone, in the 23 years of Muhammad. I can show you some of the stuff Muhammad said, and some of what the things we ended with is the opposite of what he started with. So the evolution in Islam in the 23 years history we know of, according to the writing of the scholars of Islam, it's amazing how things can change. Now, if you want to talk about that cult move for hundreds of years, sure, you can have anything and everything you can imagine in it. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Islam is exclusively this, but for instance, if you go to the 3rd, 4th century, right, with the rise of Hermetic/Gnostic Jewish apocalyptic beliefs, you'll find that those ideas also make their way into Islam, because all of these different periods, they're trying to capture something from all of these major ideas. They're just stealing from all of these major movements, all of these major gods, major systems, whatever it was influential. They were just grabbing something from every period, and you'll find it makes its way somehow into the Islamic record.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the book called by Tamara M. Green from Brill. Okay, Brill Publishers. They go back to the 1700s. Religions in the Greco-Roman World and the City of the Moon God: The Religious Traditions of Haran. Also very interesting. I'll quote that later, and I have, I think, quoted little bits and pieces from it. But this was the city of the moon god, and this was where Abraham came from. And then they speak here of, the Sabians of Haran. I'll finish with this. The Sabians of Haran in the Classical Tradition by David Pingree. This article addresses questions concerning the characteristics of the paganism of Haran and its eclectic sources. In other words, they were just grabbing stuff from everywhere. Okay? And its development by examining the relationships, real, possible, and fictitious, of various personalities within the city of Haran from Assyrian times till the Mongol attack in 1271. And the Sabians even used Neoplatonism. And yes, you'll find that in Islam for sure, guaranteed. So they came from blah, blah, blah. So they came from Simplicus to develop, explain, and justify their practice of astral magic and the interesting Greek astronomy and astrology and astral magic. Okay, the Greek philosophical and scientific material available to them was mingled with elements from ancient Mesopotamia, India, Iran, Judaism, and Egypt to form a mixed or syncretic system of belief that they could claim to be mankind's original and authentic religion. Has anyone heard that crap from Muslims before?
No way. You invented up right now.
This is what the Sabians of Haran used to claim. Remember, Muhammad was the Sabian, with the one with the new religion, and some of the very first Muslims, according to authentic narrations, when they converted to Islam, these people said, "We are now Sabians," and the Sabians were established in their main headquarters of Haran, and they said they were mankind's original and authentic religion, which is exactly a claim that Muslims make. Just so proud.
Yeah. Maybe a final thought for me, if you don't mind. If we examine the Genesis account, we'll find that Jacob was asked by his mother to go back to his uncle Laban. And that's where he met with Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. the mothers of the 12 sons of Jacob, who are the 12th tribe. And in their way back, Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, stole some of the gods of her father Laban, and she hid them. And if you think about it, this is not unusual, even though Abraham left these gods long time before that. And you got Isaac, and then you got Jacob. Now the children of Jacob were influenced by their mama, Rachel, and these gods, which she stole from the land of the mother homeland of Ur Chaldean, and they brought them back to Israel. I mean, I can see the gods travel from one spot of the world to another spot. And if it can move to the Holy Family, the early ancestors of the Jewish people, trust me, it can go anywhere else.
Yep. So I'll finish this slide. This is the last section here on the left. Then I'll go to JC and we'll end off. So mankind's original religion. So this study treats the religious and intellectual history of the city of Haran, eastern Turkey, from biblical times down to the establishment of Islam. The author starts from the well-known reference in the Quran and the early Islamic histories, and to the people of Haran as Sabians, one of the peoples of the book. Because in the Quran, the Sabians are people of the book. They're considered on the same level as Christians. And we know these people are not remotely Christian. Not remotely. You can see. So the author unravels the strands of religious tradition in Haran that run from the old Semitic planetary cults, shout out to you, Emmanuel, through Hellenistic Hermeticism, Gnosticism, and Neo-Pythagoreanism, and Christian cults to esoteric Islamic sects such as the Sufis and Shiites. That's what that book was about. I think we kind of have, we might have stumbled onto something here. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But I think that ties it all together. Yes? Yes, please, Emmanuel.
I just want to say, from their perspective, it makes sense to consider them to be on the same level as Christians, because to them they are Christians. They're not, but
They believe they
we
are,
just
yeah.
saw that the Christianity of Islam is not actual Christianity. The Christian parts, the parts from the quote unquote Bible in the Quran are not from the mainstream Bible, but are from the infant, for example, the infancy gospel of John, right? The infancy gospel of Thomas, right? Right. So major parts are from the infancy gospel of Thomas, and so on, and from various Christian Gnostic sects. So Islam is Christian in the sense that it has a lot of influence from these Christian Gnostic sects. So then from that perspective, considering the Sabians to be on the same level as the Christians makes sense. They are on the same level as the Christian Gnostics.
Yep. And Islam represents Gnostic Christianity, not Orthodox.
Not the
JC,
Christian
you have
Christianity.
something here?
I just wanted to say, oh, look, the moon religion. Sorry. I know it's childish. I just have
Show
to
us
do it.
your moon. Oh my God.
You are unpolite. You're unbelievable. Here we go. Listen to the word of Allah.
This is religion on crack.
You're bad. You're worse than JC. Listen to the word of Allah. Quran chapter 2 and verse 62. We read it before. Surely those who believed, these are the Muslims, and those who are Jews and the Nasara, he meant Christians, that's not real Christian, and the Sabians, whoever believed in Allah and in the last day and did good deed, so they will have their ajur, their wages with their Lord, and no fear on them, and they will not grieve. That is a powerful verse. As in the early days of Islam, as Islam, of course, as I said a minute ago, evolved, changed. But here we go. The good Sabians and the good Christians of Muhammad and Nasara, and the good Jews and the good Muslims, they're all on the same page, man. They will make it to the paradise of Islam.
Yeah. I'm just checking. I did catch all the super chats, right? There was one from my colleague in South Africa. Please reach out to me. Drop me an email and we'll chat. Osal praat, ne? Osal praat. So that was from Dude for Christ. Again, please do get in touch. Always good to speak to a fellow South African. That was the only one. So yeah, so guys, I think that last slide that I showed, that really seems to sum up, I know, all these little threads, all these ideas I was painting, all these things I was putting on the board. Hopefully that just that last reference there. I mean, there's still I've still got another 982 slides to go, granted, for the, but I think that last slide just suddenly tied together all of the threads. One from, so apparently I've had a super chat from Honey. It did not come up. I have not seen it. I'm looking for it now, but oh, Honey, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Oh wow, it's not showing up in the Streamlabs chat for some reason, but let me just grab it. Give me 1 second. Usama, you were saying, sorry, please go on.
What I'm saying is, you're my special friend, and I like you a lot. If you just keep to be humble like me, everything will be just great.
Yeah, that's good to know. So, guys, I want to say to Honey T222, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Wow, no, thank you. I'm really grateful. It makes a difference. I really do appreciate it, and thank you very much. That's really kind and really generous, and I'm very grateful. JC, thank you for pointing it out. It somehow didn't pop up in the feed, so sometimes the interface does that. It makes little errors. But thank you very much. I do try and read all of the chats as we go through, but I obviously can't catch every single one. But thank you again, Honey T. You're very welcome. But hopefully for all of you, this made sense, especially that last bit on the book about Haran. It suddenly ties together all of these threads that I've been showing you throughout this series, at least throughout today's episode and all the prior ones. It ties it in and makes logical sense. The Muslims were trying to go back to that religion where Abraham came from, to his father's religion. And he rejected that and followed Yahweh. So, yeah, hopefully it makes sense to you guys in the panel as well. Hopefully it makes good sense to all of you.
Absolutely. Yes. I enjoyed it today. I learned a few things, and we'll continue.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun, and it certainly it makes every day makes more sense, because there are lots of things that most of us, we didn't question, like we didn't think, oh, why do they use this thing, or why did they do that thing? But it's after you actually show, hey, they are doing this voodoo in this manner, or they're taking this in Sharia, because it's when we start to think, okay, yeah, they copied that. So it's a very good exercise to bring attention to things that they've taken from other places, instead of taking for granted that Muhammad just appeared and it came from his imagination. So well done. This has been a very enjoyable show.
Yeah, I mean, they try to paint him as he just popped out of nowhere, but he didn't. He's standing on, I don't know, he grabbed stuff from everywhere. And Islamic religion changes its clothes.
If we trace Islam to the true God, Allah, Satan, it is the deception start all the way in the beginning with Adam and Eve. And he is successful to lead millions, but we can say billions of human to eternity in hell in many ways and many different roads. But thank God for the truth which we have in Christ, the way, the truth, the life. No one can come to the Father except him. And there's always different numbers. You can come up with any mathematic problem, but there's always one correct answer for that numbers. So 1 + 1 = 2, and I can give you another 2 billion other numbers or more. So that is the difference.
There's a lot of ways to be wrong. So yeah, guys, I think we can end it here. I've got a cold, so I need to go and find a camel so I can fix it.
Fix it, please. Fix it.
I know. I don't know how many Polish camels there are, but I hear it's good. So guys,
it must be fresh, by the way. Lloyd, it has to be fresh. You cannot use old camel urine. It will not work. I know.
Yeah, I didn't see any bottles in the stores. I'm gonna have to go find a farm. So I'll see if I can, hopefully there'll be So guys, thank you very much. Hopefully this has been educational. Hopefully we've learned something and it's all made sense. And I appreciate the wonderful panel. You guys are great, except for Usama. And
Can't help it.
So thank you to everyone. Really, I do
He's
appreciate it.
sitting here and learning, so that's good. We can teach him.
Yeah, so Prophet Muhammad was a sex maniac. Yeah, we know that. Yeah.
Lloyd, you said that he actually he grabbed from all sort of things, and you're right. He was very grabby.
Yeah, he invented Viagra. So, see, another thing that came from Islam. Praise be to Allah. So, guys, good night. God bless you. We'll see you soon. Okay. Cheers, everyone.